Kevin and I shared almost 20 years of our lives together. In those 2 decades, we weathered storms and celebrated joys, finding that peaceful comfort that only comes with years of shared living. But over the past few months, I noticed Kevin pulling away, creating a distance between us that felt like a growing chasm in my heart. He kept saying he was too busy with work, buried under projects, tied up in overtime meetings, the usual excuses that I'd heard too many times before. Even as I felt him slipping away like sand through my fingers, I told myself this was just a phase, a temporary bump in our long road together. Loving someone for so many years teaches you to trust, even when doubt creeps into your heart like an unwelcome shadow. After a particularly lonely night that seemed to stretch on forever, I decided to surprise Kevin with a gesture of love. I thought perhaps a simple act of kindness could rekindle what we once had, like blowing gently on dying embers to bring back the flame. I spent that morning baking his favorite apple pie, following the same recipe we'd used since we first met, my hands moving through the familiar motions like a well-rehearsed dance. With the warm pie in my hands and a nervous smile that I couldn't quite control, I grabbed my car keys, my heart fluttering with anticipation of seeing my husband. When I arrived at his office, the first surprise was waiting for me like a slap in the face. The secretary informed me that Kevin wasn't there, saying he'd left early for an external meeting. I felt a moment of confusion, but I refused to let it dampen my spirits. Thinking his schedule might have changed, and not wanting to waste this beautiful day, I decided to wait at a nearby cafe. That's when I saw him through the window, and my world shifted on its axis. He was walking out of a hotel, wearing the same clothes from this morning. I squinted, not wanting to believe what my eyes were telling me, feeling like I was watching a scene from someone else's life. It wasn't just that Kevin was there, it was who he was with that turned my blood to ice. Standing beside him was Monica, my childhood friend, our wedding witness, the woman who had shared my secrets and joys for what seemed like a lifetime. I watched as she laughed, tossing her hair back in that familiar gesture I'd seen 1,000 times before. Her smile was different now though. It was the smile of a conspirator, cutting through me like a knife. My hands started trembling, but something inside me prevented any other reaction, as if my body was protecting me from the full impact of what I was seeing. I stood there, clutching the pie to my chest like a shield, my lips pressed together in a thin line. Without anyone noticing, I turned and walked back to my car, moving like a ghost through a world that suddenly felt unreal. The lump in my throat was suffocating, but I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't ask why. When the front door closed behind me at home, the sound echoed through me like a judge's gavel, final and devastating. The pie I'd made for Kevin sat in its thermal bag, still perfect and untouched, like a cruel metaphor for everything I thought we had. With shaking hands, I placed it in the refrigerator, feeling as if I was storing away the broken pieces of the discovery along with it. The silence in the house felt heavier than ever before, pressing down on me like a physical weight. That night, Kevin came home late, wearing a tired smile and giving me that same cold kiss he'd been giving me for months. I watched in silence as he dropped his bag in the corner and headed for the shower, not knowing this would be the last time I would shed tears over him. I spent that night in the armchair by the window, sleepless, staring into the darkness outside while feeling an expanding emptiness within. What hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal, it was the identity of the one he chose to betray me with. Monica was the woman who had shared my secrets, my dreams, and what I thought was a lifetime of friendship. There's something particularly devastating about being betrayed not by a stranger, but by someone you know, someone you trusted. Kevin and I had met many years ago at an elegant, light-filled party. I was there with Monica, my childhood friend, both of U.S. daughters of wealthy families. We stood there in our long dresses adorned with sparkling jewels, almost too bright to look at. Monica radiated a vivacious, captivating beauty, while I possessed a more subtle elegance. Across the salon, I later learned, Kevin had been watching the crowd. He wasn't born into this luxurious world. He'd been invited by an influential friend, but his ambition and confidence helped him stand tall among the elite. His eyes had scanned the room until they landed on Monica and me. I didn't know then how his heart had raced, or that while he found Monica more attractive, he had already calculated that I was the one who could open the doors he so desperately wanted. The inheritance, prestige, and stability he craved were within reach, and he wasn't about to let the opportunity slip away. A mutual friend introduced us, saying, "Natalie, this is Kevin, Joao's friend." He took my hand and kissed it gently, his eyes never leaving mine. He introduced himself with a confidence that took my breath away. His presence felt like a fresh breeze in our predictable, pretentious world. Neither of us knew it then, but that moment marked the beginning of our story. Over the next few months, as we began dating, Kevin moved his pieces across the board like a master chess player. He made me feel special, unique, as if I was the only person who truly mattered. To me, Kevin seemed like the missing piece in my life's puzzle. Unlike the boring wealthy suitors my parents introduced me to, he represented adventure and escape from monotony. We got engaged quickly and married soon after. It seemed like the beginning of a perfect life. But perfection, I would learn, is often just a thin veil hiding the cracks beneath. The early days of our marriage felt like an endless honeymoon. Kevin was attentive, charming, and made me believe I'd found true love. But something changed in him as time went by. The little thoughtful gestures gradually disappeared, anniversary gifts stopped coming, and our lively conversations turned into uncomfortable silences during meals. Kevin started spending more time away from home, always with convincing excuses. First it was work, then business trips. I felt his absence deeply but tried to convince myself it was normal in a long marriage. After our wedding, Kevin started working at my father's firm, a powerful law office handling major contracts and investments. My strict, traditional father appreciated Kevin's intelligence and apparent dedication to family. Kevin maintained his facade perfectly and was accepted without hesitation, but I now know he had a clear goal from the start. He wanted to become the sole heir to my family's empire. He played the role of the model son-in-law and husband perfectly, wearing his suits like armor and learning the ways of high society. He accompanied me to dinners and events, patiently solidifying his position in the company. He knew that having no children would make it easier to secure complete control. I didn't need to work, and Kevin made sure it stayed that way. I was the perfect wife for an ambitious man, quiet, always available for parties and events, a madam with no ambitions that might threaten his plans. Deep down, I now realize, Kevin loved controlling me just as he loved controlling everything around him. In the days that followed, I made a decision that things had to change. I couldn't keep harboring hidden resentments or allowing myself to be pushed to the margins of my own life anymore. It was time to take back the reins of my life. At breakfast, I surprised Kevin with my newfound determination. "I'm starting work at the company tomorrow," I announced in a tone that left no room for discussion. Kevin was holding his coffee cup across the table when he heard my words, and I watched him choke slightly. The shock was immediate, though he quickly composed himself, trying to maintain his cool demeanor. "At the company? Why now?" he asked, his voice filled with false curiosity. I smiled, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. "The company will be mine someday. Don't you think I need to learn how to run it?" "Of course, darling. That makes perfect sense," he replied, but I could hear the slight tremor of anxiety in his voice. I started working again at my father's law firm, one of the most prestigious in the city. The familiar, family-like environment gave me comfort, and I felt it was time to restart my professional career. But I never expected the past to be waiting for me in such an unexpected way. As I was settling into my new routine, I noticed that Monica, my former friend, was frequently appearing at the company despite not working there. On a cloudy day, while I was organizing documents, Monica walked into the conference room. The look of surprise on her face when she saw me was impossible to hide. "Natalie, it's been so long," she exclaimed, trying to mask the tension in the air. I caught my breath for a moment. "What are you doing here, Monica? Looking for legal services?" I asked, unable to keep the sarcasm from my voice. "I'm here to see Kevin." "But it's good to see you too," she answered, struggling to maintain her smile. The air felt heavy, like a storm about to break. As days passed, I observed Kevin becoming increasingly cold and authoritarian with the employees. He seemed to be losing control of his emotions, frequently shutting himself in his office. Meanwhile, Monica maintained a lighthearted attitude as if nothing had happened. I wondered how she could act so normal when what had happened between them was still burning in my heart. As Monica spoke, I struggled with a mixture of anger and sadness. The memories of what was once a pure friendship now seemed tainted. My heart pounded with anger as I wondered how long Kevin and Monica had been seeing each other behind my back. Around that time, I started feeling body aches and an unexplainable fatigue that wouldn't go away even after a night's rest. At first, I attributed it to the stress and new work routine, but an inner voice told me it was something more serious. After consulting with doctors, the news hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer. The impact was devastating. I couldn't help but think, why now, just when I was trying to reclaim my life and ambitions? The fragility of health made me see everything from a different perspective, triggering waves of emotions I didn't know how to handle. Determined to face the situation, I decided to host a lunch at home and invited my father and Monica. I wanted to talk about my diagnosis. I believed that honesty might bring long-hidden emotions to light. I also wanted Monica to feel the weight of her actions. On the day of the lunch, the air was heavy with expectation, and tension filled the room as everyone took their seats. I was determined to maintain a positive attitude despite everything. "Dad, Monica, I have something important to tell you," I began, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "I've recently been diagnosed with breast cancer." My announcement left a deep silence hanging over the table. My father was visibly shaken, tears beginning to stream down his face. "How could this happen to you?" he said, each word heavy with pain. I tried to comfort him. "Dad, I'll get through this. I'm determined to face this battle and win it. I'll undergo treatment and, God willing, I'll come back stronger than before. I'll be with you every step of this journey," my father replied, his voice full of love and concern. I knew he was ready to do whatever it took to support me. While his words comforted me, uncertainty still clouded my heart. As treatment approached, I hoped Kevin would show concern and offer to accompany me. But to my disappointment, he remained indifferent. My father always accompanied me to doctor's appointments and treatment sessions, while Kevin maintained his distance, his absence creating an ever-deepening wound. Time passed, and although I received the best medical care available, my health deteriorated rapidly. The disease progressed mercilessly. I, who had faced adversity so bravely before, was growing weaker. Fatigue took over my body, making even the simplest tasks impossible. I had to quit my job and spend quiet days at home with my father, who never abandoned me. While I fought for my life, Kevin and Monica rekindled their affair with even greater passion. They met in discreet corners of the city, their once careful meetings now growing bolder. One day, I learned later, Monica asked while fixing her hair in a motel mirror, showing not a shred of guilt, "How much longer do you think Natalie has?" Kevin let out a long, cold sigh and answered honestly, "Not long. It's just a matter of time." Monica smiled with satisfaction. "Finally, we can live our love," she said, cupping Kevin's face in her hands. "And get the inheritance too." They laughed together, as if my suffering was just a minor obstacle that would soon disappear, clearing the way for the life they desperately wanted. My father, always an observant and wise man, noticed Kevin's indifference and the couple's true intentions. My daughter needs protection, and this fortune must not fall into the wrong hands, I heard him say to himself one day.
On that cold December morning, death came for Natalie like a whispered lullaby at dawn. As the merciless disease claimed its final victory, her devoted father held her delicate hand until her last breath drifted away into the crisp morning air. The funeral service, though understated, resonated with profound emotion in the small chapel of their affluent suburban community. Childhood friends, colleagues, and family members gathered to honor the memory of a woman who had faced life's cruelest betrayals with quiet dignity. The weight of collective grief hung in the air like morning fog, each mourner bearing witness to Natalie's silent battle against both illness and deception. Her father, once the very picture of strength and authority, could barely stand under the crushing weight of his sorrow. This pillar of the community, who had guided countless business deals with unwavering confidence, aged decades in mere days. Yet the most conspicuous absence was that of Kevin and Monica, their empty seats in the front pew speaking volumes about their true nature. Neither attended the wake nor the funeral, their absence as cold as the winter wind that swept through the church grounds. For them, Natalie had ceased to exist long before her heart stopped beating, their emotional ties to her severed like delicate threads in a storm. "Don't concern yourself with their gossip," Kevin told Monica on the morning of the funeral, his voice carrying the chill of a midwinter frost. "Natalie's gone. Our performance is finally over." Monica's laugh shattered the morning stillness like broken crystal. "At last, we're truly free." In the days following the funeral, they emerged as lovers, flaunting their relationship throughout the exclusive neighborhoods where Natalie had once been so respected. They dined at the finest establishments, laughing like carefree teenagers, intoxicated by their newfound freedom. They brazenly ignored the whispers of the community who remembered Natalie's tragic story, their hearts seemingly frozen in their own perpetual winter. "We owe no explanations," Kevin declared with the arrogance of a man who believed he had orchestrated the perfect plan. "She's gone, and the past is nothing but dust." Fate, however, had other plans, beginning with an official letter that arrived at Kevin's downtown office from the family's longtime lawyer. It was a summons for the final reading of Natalie's will, a moment she had meticulously planned from beyond the grave. Kevin, already mentally spending his inheritance, rushed to the meeting with Monica at his side, their designer clothes a stark contrast to their tarnished souls. They were greeted by the lawyer and Natalie's father in the elegant conference room, where tension hung thick as summer storm clouds. Her father's eyes held a calculated coldness that would have made even the most seasoned businessman flinch. "We appreciate your promptness," he said, his voice steady as aged whiskey. "We must share Natalie's final wishes." The familiar faces gathered around the mahogany conference table did nothing to dispel the electric tension in the air. Kevin and Monica sat side by side, her face wearing a smile of premature triumph while his hands remained tightly clasped on the polished wood. They believed their charade could finally end, making way for the luxurious life they had plotted together. Having passed just a week before, everyone expected a standard reading, the mansion to the husband, investment portfolios divided, some charitable donations as was Natalie's gracious way. Monica placed her manicured hand on Kevin's knee, already envisioning how she would transform the colonial estate to match her contemporary tastes. The lawyer cleared his throat and opened the cream-colored envelope with deliberate precision. The room fell into a silence so complete you could hear the antique grandfather clock's steady heartbeat in the corner. "If you're hearing this, Kevin," he read, "my earthly journey has concluded. As promised, I have departed quietly. However, I've ensured that you and Monica receive precisely what you deserve." Monica's triumphant smile melted like spring snow, while Kevin's brow furrowed into deep valleys of concern. The lawyer continued, his voice as unwavering as a judge's final verdict. Our home of 20 years has been sold, the proceeds donated to my foundation. All joint accounts have been closed, investments liquidated, and every penny has been given to orphanages and shelters. Kevin's face turned ashen, while Monica clutched his arm with fingers that trembled like autumn leaves in a storm. But don't worry, the lawyer continued, turning to the next page with measured grace. I have left something special for you both. Kevin, I leave you the freedom you so desperately craved. And Monica, I thank you for showing me your true colors. I hope this discovery was worth everything. And since love without money might prove challenging for you both, I leave you something symbolic. The lawyer produced a small wooden box, placing it deliberately on the mahogany table with the weight of destiny. Inside lay a single rusty key, its aged surface telling tales of forgotten promises. This is the key to the storage unit containing all the memories of our marriage. You may visit if you wish, but be warned, like rust, memories have a way of leaving permanent stains. The room fell into a silence as deep as a winter grave. Monica stared at Kevin with dawning horror, the reality of their shattered dreams finally sinking in like a stone in still water. Kevin's face was a battlefield of guilt and despair, every muscle drawn tight with the weight of consequence. The lawyer closed the letter with a snap that echoed like a judge's gavel in the tomb-like silence. The estate has been distributed according to Natalie's wishes and her father's guidance. As you now understand, you will receive nothing. Kevin's anger flared like a sudden storm. That's impossible. I was her husband. I have legal rights. The lawyer's smile was as calm as a frozen lake. Actually, all assets have been legally transferred to Natalie's charitable foundation. The law fully supports this disposition. Monica's fingers dug into Kevin's arm with desperate fury. So we've lost everything? Yes, the lawyer confirmed with quiet finality. And by Natalie's explicit wishes, you are left with nothing. Natalie had departed this world peacefully, but left behind a bitter lesson wrapped in elegant revenge. Not all betrayals require confrontation to be avenged. Sometimes silence delivers the most devastating blow of all. Kevin and Monica, now facing bankruptcy together, learned how love can crumble not through harsh words, but through the precise execution of a quiet goodbye. As months passed, Monica began to see that her attraction to Kevin had been nothing more than a dangerous fantasy of an easy life. Now, with neither Natalie's money nor the security of marriage, he no longer held any appeal for her. Seeds of regret began to sprout in her heart, but it was far too late for redemption. Meanwhile, Kevin came to understand that his ambition had yielded nothing but ashes. His betrayal had not been a victory but had instead created only ruins. So what do we do now? Monica asked, her voice as cold as a January morning. Kevin stared at the rain-clouded horizon before answering, there's nothing left. It's over. As time wore on, Kevin and Monica's relationship began to unravel like a cheap sweater. What had once seemed passionate was now nothing more than a bitter memory. Without money, everyday problems began to eat away at their relationship like acid on metal. Monica began to distance herself, finally realizing their foundation had been built on lies and selfishness. Meanwhile, Natalie's father found solace in the legacy she had left behind. The charitable foundation she established helped hundreds of women receiving medical treatment, ensuring her memory lived on in meaningful ways. Though Natalie was gone, her victory was absolute and elegant. Those who betrayed her were left with nothing but the emptiness they had created. Her story stands as a testament to loving with dignity and courage, even when that love isn't returned. Even when that love wasn't returned, her story teaches us something profound. When Natalie discovered the betrayal, she chose not to meet it with hatred. Her choice of silence wasn't a sign of weakness, but rather an act of wisdom as profound as a summer sunrise. Her revenge wasn't destructive, she refused to lower herself to the level of those who had abandoned her. Instead, she transformed her suffering into a legacy of mercy and solidarity, like turning winter frost into spring flowers. She showed the world that there are battles won not through harsh words, but through fair and peaceful decisions that echo through time. Kevin and Monica thought Natalie's death would mark the beginning of their freedom, but they realized too late. True freedom isn't found in betrayal, lies, or the accumulation of material wealth. It's as elusive as trying to catch the wind. Natalie found her freedom when she let go of attachment, forgave herself, and refused to bow to suffering. In the end, she left this world without hatred in her heart, like a peaceful sunset on a summer evening. She knew that her love and sincerity for others would live on through the lives she had touched. Life teaches us that victory isn't about gaining power, money, or control. It's about keeping your head high, weathering life's storms, and never letting your heart grow cold. Though she couldn't defeat her illness, she triumphed over indifference and betrayal. And in this world where goodbyes are inevitable, the greatest victory anyone can achieve is leaving behind a legacy that never fades. So, dear viewers, how does this story resonate with you? Your thoughts and feelings mean the world to us. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. On your screen, you'll see 2 more stories that will surely touch your heart. Until we meet again, remember, true victory lies not in revenge, but in the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind.